Hey, what's up, guys? Pete Alonso here from the New York Mets, and I'm here with Alfred. And I just want to say thank you so much to all you guys for listening to the Metropolitan Report. It's a really awesome show. You got some great insight on Mets baseball, and yeah, it's a great place where Mets baseball is talked about, and we got a lot of really fun stuff coming up this year. And a lot of really great things coming from this team in the clubhouse, and I'm really excited to keep the ball rolling. And it's been such a fun season, and I'm really thankful for everybody coming out to the ballpark and supporting us, and it's just been absolutely tremendous. So thank everybody for listening to the Metropolitan Report, and Alfred, keep doing your thing, and as always, LFGM.
Hey, everybody, it's Alfred Parsar Jr. back with another episode of the Metropolitan Report. And just a reminder before we get today's edition of the report started, if you guys like what you've been seeing, if you want to get notified when we have a new episode, just go right down below, hit the subscribe button. And if you agree with what I say, you have a difference of opinion, make sure you leave a comment, but make sure to subscribe. That way, every time we go live, you get a notification to your email, to your phone, or whatever device or method of YouTube notifications that you get. With that being said, on today's Metropolitan Report here on this Monday morning, we are going to discuss the Mets opening weekend series against the Houston Astros. And the Mets played 3 games against Houston. They opened on Thursday. They played again on Friday and Saturday. Yesterday was an off day before we get to later on today, where the Mets will start a series with the Marlins in Miami. But we're going to talk about things that we like because it's too early to talk about things we didn't like because 3 games is a bit of a small sample size. But um, the biggest positive, the biggest plus, if you will, out of what we saw this weekend were the Mets in those 3 games. They only won one. They won on Friday night. They lost Thursday afternoon, and they lost Saturday night to the Astros, but we did win on Friday night. But the biggest plus out of this entire 3 game series against the Houston Astros, who are no slouches, by the way, perennial playoff team every season, the biggest takeaway and the biggest plus has been Juan Soto. Juan Soto, of course, the 15-year, $765 million contract, or 785, or however much it was. I just know it's almost close to 800 million. He delivered. I can't. Yankee fans who happen to be like scorned ex-girlfriends criticized the man because he struck out at the end of the game on Friday with the game on the line. But everybody's going to strike out at some point. Aaron Judge will probably strike out quite a few times this season. But I mean, Juan Soto's looked good in the opening series. Juan Soto, as you can see on the graphic below me on our lower third, he had a 333 average, 3 base hits, one being a home run. He drove in 2 runs, and he had 4 walks. So in the span of 3 games, he got on base 7 times. In his very first at bat as a Met, he singled. His very first at bat in franchise history, he singled. And then he got on base 2 more times via the walk in the same game. The second game, he hits a homer. He hit a double on Saturday night. Juan Soto is carrying this Mets offense so much so that if it's not Juan Soto, then the bats are quiet. Juan Soto is on a 3 game hit streak. He'll probably continue that starting tonight in Miami. And I have nothing bad to say about Juan Soto. For those who have followed us since our inception in 2021 on this podcast, I've always said that I demand results. Guys got to live up to their contracts, and so far, Juan Soto, he's living up to the contract. Soto's looking good. Nothing to say there, or nothing bad to say there. I should add. The Mets, they scored 4 runs in this series against the Astros. And of the 4 runs, half of them were driven in by Juan Soto. What bad can you say? There's literally nothing bad I can say about Juan Soto. I said during spring training and our coverage of the Mets spring training that Juan Soto looked to be in midseason form, and it's showing. Some guys on the team, like our shortstop Francisco Lindor, is known for having notoriously slow starts, but Juan Soto coming out of the gate hot. There's no criticism. Like I said, those Yankee fans who are mad that Juan Soto left, like the scoring ex-girlfriend, you point out one bad thing that happened, one flaw, and it was the end of the world. Well, he shut you guys up the next day with that home run. But even so, yeah, he struck out against Josh Hader at the end of the first game with the game on the line. Clutch pressure situation. It was a nasty slider. Would have fooled mostly anybody. So I don't understand how anybody could criticize Juan Soto when he got on base 3 times in the same game. You're just nitpicking at the one at bat that happened to not go in his favor. But Juan Soto batting .333. Again, he's got 3 hits. Out of those 3 hits, 2 of them have been for extra bases. One a home run, the other a double. He's got 2 RBIs, and he's walked 4 times. So again, through 3 games, the man has been on base 7 times. That's more that's more than 2 plate appearances getting on per game if you do the math. No issue with Juan Soto. I expect Juan Soto to keep it going against a surprising Marlins team, and we'll talk about this Marlins team a little later on. Another positive from this Mets squad that I was not quite expecting. I mean, granted, this unit has had a good spring training so far, but the Mets bullpen against the Astros, every member of the bullpen got to pitch so far this season through the 3 games. 9 2/3 innings, 3 hits, no runs, and 9 strikeouts for this Mets bullpen. So the bullpen looking very strong. In the first game of the series, we saw Huascar Brazoban looked really solid. Didn't allow any further damage past what Clay Holmes allowed. Even on Saturday night, again, the bullpen looked really good. Friday night, the bullpen looked good again. Max Kranick, who I ranted and raved about, he really stepped up. He was in a pressure situation, worked his way out. So, again, kudos to this bullpen. They had a dominant spring. And I know, again, spring training will be spring training because, again, non-roster invitees, not facing major league competition or fringe major league competition. But the bullpen looked really, really good through this series against Houston in these 3 games. Once again, 9 2/3 innings of work. Only 3 hits surrendered in the near 10 innings that they've pitched. 9 strikeouts and not a single run allowed. The bullpen ERA is 0, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll take those results because there are other teams around the league, some still undefeated, who, because it was garbage time in a blowout, their bullpen could allow runs because the other team just couldn't catch them. But the Mets, they were locked in this weekend as far as the bullpen goes. The Mets, and again, like I said, it's only 3 games. It's a small sample size, but it seems like if Juan Soto was the lone bright spot in the lineup, but I'm sure, especially facing this Marlins team, who historically the Mets have always beaten up on the Marlins, their offense will start to fire on all cylinders, hopefully. When you look at the Houston Astros series, all 3 games in the series were close, so that tells you how effective the pitching has been. The Mets only allowed 3 runs in the first game on Thursday. They lost 3-1. They only allowed 1 run on Friday. Kudos to Tylor Megill, who I've been advocating for all spring training, as you can see in the lower third. Tylor Megill was also a bright spot for the Mets in that win on Friday. He got the start. Megill, if we could go over his numbers, he only allowed one run in 5 innings and struck out six. Not bad at all. Not a bad start to the season for Megill. He was in competition for the final rotation spot against Paul Blackburn, and he had a confident spring. Did Tylor Megill, and that confidence and that poise translated against the Astros in his first start of the season. Again, he went 5 innings, only walked one, struck out six, and only gave up 3 hits and the one earned run. So Tylor Megill looking solid. He'll look to keep that up. The next time we should see Tylor Megill in action will be next week at home, or later this week, I should say, when the Mets play the Blue Jays at home. But again, Megill, I have high hopes for Megill just for the way he looked in spring training. And Megill had something to prove by beating out Paul Blackburn for that last rotation spot, and he certainly did get the job done on Friday against a heck of an Astros team. Anytime you got to face Jose Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, Jeremy Pena, Christian Walker in that bunch, it's never easy. But again, Megill looked really sharp, and I hope that one of the biggest flaws about Tylor Megill is that he's inconsistent. For every one good start he's been known to have 3 bad starts. So hopefully this is the start of a very successful streak. Hope to see this against the Blue Jays the next time that he takes the hill. So with Tylor Megill, I'm as a staunch Tylor Megill supporter, I am very happy with his output against the Astros so far. So kudos to him. But again, this Mets pitching staff, like I said, the Astros only scored 6 runs through 3 games in the series. They won the first game 3-1, lost the second game 3-1, and then they won the finale of the series on Saturday 2-1. So the Mets lost a game by 2 runs, won a game by 2 runs, lost a game by a single run. One thing about this Mets offense I will acknowledge is that the late inning fight, which they were notorious for in 2024 last season, where they'd be down the majority of the game, and then now all of a sudden they're coming back to rally at the end. That never say die spirit is still in this lineup, is still in this team. In the top of the ninth on Thursday, the Mets rallied to get the bases loaded with nobody out when they were down 3-0. Unfortunately, they were only able to get 1 run out of that situation, losing the game 2-1. And then even on Saturday's game, they fought down to the end, down a run. And again, they had a couple men on base in that top of the ninth and just couldn't get the job done with the Brandon Nimmo lineout to end things. But that never say die spirit is still with this team. And I'm going to go ahead and say this confidently, but if the Mets, because they did get a couple of hard shots at the plate, a couple of those hard hit line drives that had those line drives gone a different direction or taken or some of those grounders would have bounced a different way, we might be talking different, and the Mets record might be 2-1 or 3-0 instead of 1-2. But again, there's no need to panic. 162 games of baseball, 159 are left. Only 3 have gone down. I like what I saw of the Mets because again, it's very hard to play a game and go into the top of the ninth as the visiting team in another team's ballpark, down 3 runs, and have enough moxie within yourselves to get the bases loaded with nobody out. It's just baseball. Sometimes they just weren't able to a little bit too little, too late. But couple mistakes, but again, that's baseball, and I believe that this never say die spirit of the Mets will continue to carry them as the season goes on to the point where they may not even need to rally late. But again, I like what I saw because when crunch time came, they were able to rally, albeit unsuccessfully twice, but they're not striking out in these situations, minus Soto at the end of the first game. Like I said, a couple of hard hit line drives just happened to go to the guys with the gloves in the field. But the Mets, of course, had an off day yesterday, Sunday. Later on today, they start a series 6:40 p.m. Eastern time against the Miami Marlins, who surprisingly are 3-1. I did not have the Marlins being above 500 at any point in this season on my bingo card. They beat up on the Pittsburgh Pirates 3 out of the 4 games they played them in this weekend. The Mets will have an advantage because the Marlins, they played Thursday, they played Friday, they played Saturday, they played Sunday. They're going to have their 5th consecutive game in 5 days. This series is going to go on through Wednesday, so they may be the more tired group of the two. As the Mets, they had that off day yesterday after playing 3 in Houston. The Mets did have to travel from Houston to Miami, but not a big distance in between the two cities. And again, the day off should help the Mets. Let's look at the pitching matchup for the game later tonight between the Mets and the Marlins. As you can see on the graphic on the screen, David Peterson going to make his season debut going up against Cal Quantrill. As you can see, the 2024 pitching numbers between the two. Peterson went 10-3 last year with a 2.90 ERA. Fantastic season, 101 strikeouts in 121 innings. Quantrill pitched more than Peterson. He went 8-11, 4.98 ERA, 148 and a thirds innings, 110 strikeouts. So even though he had way more innings than Peterson did, Quantrill, he's not a strikeout guy. Only 9 more strikeouts. Only 9 more strikeouts in 27 and a thirds innings more work. I would want to go out on a limb here and say that the Mets are going to win this series against the Marlins, only because the Marlins, along with the Nationals, have usually been cellar dwellers for the better part of the last 5 years in the NL East, minus 2023 when they made the playoffs, and minus 2020 when it was the COVID-shortened season. Somebody had to get in. But yeah, this Marlins team, you look at their lineup, there's not a lot of guys who would scare you in that lineup. Their best players are Griffin Conine, Xavier Edwards, and the average casual baseball fan would say who? So this Marlins team is not gonna strike fear into the hearts of any opposing opposition. A bunch of young guys who, dare I say, would be minor leaguers. There'll be AAA players in other organizations. Guys like the aforementioned Griffin Conine. You got Matt Mervis, Xavier Edwards, Kyle Stowers. These are all guys who, and dare I say, would either be on, they'll be starters on bad teams like the Washington Nationals, the Colorado Rockies. But if they were on a team that's going to contend like the Orioles, the Yankees, the Phillies, these would be AAA players. Again, it's baseball, so I'm not predicting a sweep, but I do think the Mets take 2 out of 3 from the Miami Marlins. Again, Cal Quantrill, the Mets should be able to jump on him, especially the way that Soto's been hitting the ball so far to start the season. Pete Alonso had a good first game. Friend of the show, Pete Alonso, shout out to him. So, again, I don't see the Mets having an issue with the Marlins. There is a talent disparity between the Astros and the Marlins, so I don't expect the Mets offense to get shut down and locked down against this Miami Marlins team like they did against the Houston Astros. So I'm predicting 2 out of 3. Of course, the next edition of the Metropolitan Report, again, we will be reacting to this series. The Mets' next off day is Thursday, which makes sense because they have the home opener on Friday against the Blue Jays after this 3-game set against the Marlins. We'll be back on Thursday covering it all, reactions to everything, talking about what we like. Hopefully, not talking much about what we don't like because, again, small sample size. It'll only be 6 games by the time this series is over. But if you like what you see, make sure to go down there and hit that subscribe button for me. That way you get a notification every time we go live, ladies and gentlemen. And if you agree or disagree with me on anything I've said, put it in the comments. And the last thing I'm going to say before we get out of here is let's go Mets. See ya.